as we say,
30 seconds.
30 seconds, throwing their keys across the table, selling themselves to somebody who can financially save them, or closing. We formed a joint venture with the Princeton Review to provide and to partner with us without doing either one of those, to provide resources and assistance to move into this period of expansion. And so that's a very different academic model than you typically see going on, and one that is not getting the ire of the US Congress the way they are about some of the other for-profit models. And I could say a lot more, but I have to stop now.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it. Third, we're going to go to John Katzman, who's the founder and CEO of Tutor, and he's going to give us the 3 to 4 minute essence of how Tutor is breaking the mold.
Well, first of all, I got to say,
oh, here.
The nice thing about speaking, I'll take them all.
You're in stereo now.
The nice thing about speaking here is that it is power, literally. I have everything plugged in now. I founded the Princeton Review and left 3 years ago to start Tutor. We work with great research universities, with University of Southern California, Georgetown, and UNC Chapel Hill as a start, to build and administer and run large-scale, high-quality online programs, graduate programs. And in doing that, we start with technology. You've got to bring a different sort of tech to the table. Most of the technologies out there flank classroom instruction, and we had to design something that made sense for online. But at the same time, these schools need much, much more than tech. To make that leap, they first of all need a lot of money. Each one of these programs costs us about $15 million to launch. Each course costs a couple $100,000 to build, all the asynchronous materials. If you're going to do something online that is of high quality, of the same kind of quality as the classroom programs that you're building them on top of, you really do need to be thoughtful about the medium. We do all the student services, from the recruiting through ongoing support of a 24/7 global environment, and we have students already in about 20 countries. The best way to think of it is the professors, the students, and the intellectual property are the universities, and kind of everything else is us. So we flank the core of what makes a great university. The job of signing up schools, of getting schools to think differently about online education, that it's not some little thing they do, let's try a course online, or let's run some little tiny program, is really hard. You're talking to the best schools in the world, you're talking to people at the top of their profession and saying, you know, we really want to work with you and change everything. And it's been quite an interesting couple years. I founded the company with Steve Breen, among others, 3 years ago. We launched our first program 18 months ago. At this point, for instance, the teaching program at USC, which was our first program, the classroom program is still at about 80 students a year. The online program is at 1,600 students and growing pretty quickly. There are 3 ways we could screw up these great institutions with great global brands. And you think about, you know, Coca-Cola and Ford and Kleenex, they're all 100-year-old brands. These are like 300-year-old brands. These are some of the finest reputations, the finest institutions in the world. And the ways you could screw that up, number one, is to create something generic. These schools don't see themselves as commodities and aren't. What is their essence? What's their soul? And how do you extend that online? You could take in students who wouldn't get into the classroom program, which clearly we should not do and are not. You could provide a mediocre experience. You could go with a broadcast model instead of a social network. If you think about what makes a great university great, it's the other students as much as anything. And you have to find ways of hitting that. And finally, the question mark is scale itself bad? And in the end, it's going to be sort of a legacy of Tutor to think through that notion. My own belief is that there's a tremendously disruptive thing going on in higher ed. If we're successful in taking these schools online at scale and creating category killers, there'll be a 3-ter or a 4-tor. There will be other people who come along to enable schools, to fund them, to work with them. But there won't be an 8 tour. There only is going to be so much venture capital and only so much foundation money that goes to taking top 10, 20, 30 schools and creating something that's really world class. And the question is, how do the have and have-nots play out, with costs at traditional universities rising by 2 or 3 points over inflation pretty much forever, whereas online, as you hit scale, the economics are pretty virtuous. And I'm talking costs more than tuition, but it does start impacting tuition in a pretty positive way for the haves, and in an increasingly negative way for the have-nots, as other schools start fishing in their waters, as students are more comfortable going online, as schools traditionally, when people will go around the country to go to undergrad or maybe for law school or med school, but they won't do it for a lot of schools. Schools have been protected by their geography, and that's going away. And so there's an interesting kind of aspect to tutor that should be discussed.
Great. Thank you, John. Finally, we're going to go to Frank McCluskey. Frank is the Executive Vice President and Provost of American Public University System and a fellow West Virginian. Frank?
Yeah, it's a hard act to follow. Very good. I'm in one of those universities that has scale. I'm a professor of philosophy originally. Taught, 10 students at night, and now I run 77,000 students, and I oversee it. We've grown to 77,000 students, 700 professors. We're in all 24 time zones of monthly starts. It's a pretty big operation. But because of the scale, it's given us the opportunity to do certain things, to fund certain things, to look at certain things. So I think there's 5 questions you might want to ask me if you're likely after this. Number 1, how do you manage 77,000 students virtually when you can't see them? Can they cheat, et cetera, et cetera? How do you manage quality? Number 2, we've not raised our undergraduate tuition in 10 years. I'll say this again. We've not raised our undergraduate tuition in 10 years while growing a scale to handle folks. And we've tried to do it by actually managing costs in technology, meaning that instead of adding folks, we try to figure out how to manage systems. One example would be when our students go online, they have a sheet for they can sign up for classes, and their classes are in different colors. They can take them, not take, they sort of can't fall off like I did in college, take their own classes. 3, we supply textbooks as part of the tuition. You can't say free, I guess, and that's illegal somehow. We supply textbooks and have not raised that price in 10 years and tried to eat those costs by going online virtually with e-books and other things and other arrangements. 4, we collect luminous data on our folks using IBM SBS Modeler, and we can actually predict when an individual student is likely to have an event, an attrition event, a retention event. We can actually we can divide our students into folks who can going to be successful, they're not going to stay, and those who we can do something about. We can sort of figure that out by using 82 different variables and then seeing what their behavior is in class. And by combining those 2 things, we can sort of guess when we should intervene, see what we can do. And finally, the last question is, what good can come from a for-profit? I know it's bad. I read the paper every day. Are there good things we can learn? Are there things that we can apply to the universities? Are there things that can happen? And just saying in closing, because I talk fast, I believe that the nonprofits done a great job with traditional education. The for-profits have built business models that the nonprofits can learn from. The future is some third thing where the best of those 2 is put together, put to a new mold. So that's the thing we're sort of looking about and talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Frank got us back on time, single-handedly there.
I'm from New York, baby.
Right. That's all right. So anyway, we're going to go right to questions, so folks, please line up. I think I'll ask one rhetorical question as people get up here, which is, to break a mold, we've got to sacrifice some sacred cows. And so I think we heard a few of those down the line, but as we think about our responses, to be really clear about what are those sacred cows that are in the mold, that are just built into the way we do business, that you all have had to put on at least put on the conversation table, if not on the chopping block. So questions?
All right. I have 2 really quick ones, so I'll make them really quick. One is, are there particular topics or subjects that you think lend themselves to this sort of new ways of learning that you're talking about versus others, like philosophy versus math? And the other question, which I can ask now and you can answer also, is how do you attack the issue of sort of the prestige of the traditional model and the network effect of having a Harvard education prepares you not just because of what you